Join us. This is a very important conversation about to go on about the infinite possibilities of Inkjet. And quite frankly, there are infinite possibilities with Inkjet. And Memjet is new to the Alliance. I'm really, really happy that they are joining us. And not for nothing, but as I was mentioned before, you have amazing banner placement because all the pictures being taken of the Printerverse are getting that Memjet logo right over the top of my thing. So one of these years, the show will understand this prime real estate around this booth. Mandy, I was just making an announcement, but I don't have to be on. Oh, we're on? Okay, cool. As soon as Marion comes up here, we'll get started, and I will get out of the way. But I'm talking to all you over there in the food court buying coffee and snacks. They're over here for free. Just saying it, just mentioning that. So thanks. Hey, Martin. So now I'm going to turn this over to Marion and to the team Memjet and everybody, all you guys. Thank you so much for joining the Alliance this year, for your support, and for having an event and talking to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you all for being here. I know it's not just the brownies that are bringing you in, right? It's about inkjet technology. How many of you are currently using an inkjet solution, or how many of you are just thinking about solutions for inkjet? Thinking or using? Using, great. How many of you are here for the brownies? Just kidding. Well, you've come to the right place for both refreshments and for an understanding of inkjet technology. We've gathered this panel together. These are some executives from Memjet, an inkjet specialist who will be here to address really not just about inkjet technology, but really about what inkjet can do for you, what it's going to do for your operation. Let me introduce to you our panel, and we'll talk a little bit about the questions we'll go through today. I'd like to start this. To my left here is Len Lauer. He's the CEO of Memjet. Welcome. And in the middle is Eric Owen. Eric is the general manager of the commercial print division at Memjet. Be better with this? Excellent. All right, so should I start completely over? We're here to learn about the power of inkjet, and we're here to learn about what it can do for your business. And so I want to introduce to you the panel who will be really exploring that topic in detail today. Let me do again the introduction of Len Lauer, Memjet's CEO. And in the middle we have Eric Owen, who is Memjet's general manager of the commercial printing division. And in the last seat we have Kevin Shimamoto, who is the chief marketing officer of Memjet. So each of these men have extensive experience within the inkjet field. And it's not just about technology, although that's a large part of it. It's also about the impact that these inkjet solutions have had for our OEM partners and primarily for the end users, the printers. So that's what we're going to explore today. What we want to do is really give you kind of an insight into what the power of inkjet can do for your business. So what I want to do is make this first of all, make it an interactive discussion. So if something is unclear or something you want more details on, just raise your hand and we'll certainly make it more of a conversation. The other thing is just to think about as you're listening to the presentations and you're listening to the technology, think about what's going on within your own business and think about what you're trying to accomplish with your organization and what needs you're trying to meet for your customers and see how inkjet might fit into that. So the first question I'm going to send out is to Len. The first question is really just about who Memjet is. I think a lot of people hear this name Memjet, they hear about the technology, but they're not always sure exactly who Memjet is. Do they make printers? Do they make technology? So I wondered, Len, if you could share some light on just who Memjet is and what your research and development process is, and why OEM partners choose to partner with Memjet.
Right. Thanks, Marion. Good afternoon, everyone. So, Memjet, we are in the digital inkjet market, and we are a technology company that supplies a lot of the capabilities for inkjet to many large OEMs. We supply to about 37 OEMs around the world. And our differentiation is really we make a page-wide, what's called a page-wide array, A4 paper width wide. And that has 4 color channels traditionally, or sometimes we'll go monochrome. So our benefit is about speed, simplicity, and affordability or profitability for the end user. We go to market with these many OEMs, anywhere from a desktop market that may be desktop labels or desktop mailing to what are called mini presses for converters, all the way up into the commercial press space and into the production space with many different manifestations that you'll see in the marketplace.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I think that shines some light on kind of what kinds of solutions Memjet powers. And then I think it's going to be interesting to take a look at who is using this inkjet technology and what kinds of printers. Is it just printers or is it other types of providers? So the next question kind of goes to you, Kevin. I was wondering if you could tell us more about the types of users of Memjet technology. Who are the people that are using this?
Well, I think that's one of the most exciting things about being with the business model that we have, is that because we go across so many different market segments and because of our value proposition focused on quality, speed, and profitability, we're not only attracting end users that are traditional printers like converters, mail houses, service bureaus, but we're opening up our user base now to a completely new set of end users. So those end users could be brands, they could be manufacturers, they could be retailers, specialty print shops. Those are all new end users that basically, with our technology, from the ease of use, from the low capital costs, can now get into printing for themselves. And so it's really expanded the print world from an end user standpoint.
So I think what Kevin said there is an interesting point, and I think as I look out here and I look at the different types of, I wonder if there are different types of providers in the audience. So for example, Kevin talked about a mail house that's looking to add value, and there's Inkjet is right there, powering like customized envelopes. Or if it's someone more in a commercial space, Inkjet is also there. And so I wondered, Eric, if you could tell us a little bit more about sort of how the Inkjet solutions that are being used in the commercial space.
Sure, thanks. And I think the best way to answer that would be to just give you a couple of examples of some of our OEM partners' clients and what they're doing with inkjet technology today. First example I'll give you is a company called Flex Marketing that is in Alabama. They're a mailing company that has added press that's been built by Superweb, who's one of our OEM partners. They build a product they call the 200D, and it's a roll-fed inkjet CMYK press. And Flex has been able to use that to produce a whole new range of products in their mailing business that they had not been able to do before because they didn't have a variable print capability. And they're doing it for a much lower cost than what they had imagined. And when they had researched other inkjet presses that are available in the marketplace, they were more expensive than their budget would allow, and it was blocking them from being able to get to this new kind of market opportunity that's very important, obviously, to that business. And another example I'll give you is a company up in Canada that's called Still Creek, and they approached digital differently. Rather than looking to buy an entire digital system, they wanted to retrofit an offset press of theirs to add digital capability. And so they went to one of our partners, a company called IPT, which is down in Florida, and worked with them on installing what we refer to as a retrofit printing engine on an existing business forms press, which allowed them to bring digital into their offset world and do it for a much more cost-effective way than going out and buying a whole standalone system. So those are two good examples, IPT and Superweb.
So I think it really goes back to what Len said at the beginning. It's the speed, profitability, and that Inkjet enables. And I think what Eric's talking about here is that whether you're, we have some of you may have, say, equipment that you're existing equipment that you rely on, that you use, and you want to get into Inkjet, but you're not 100% sure how to do it. The retrofit solution that he talked about is really remarkable because it's like letting you use this existing solution to get into the advantages of Inkjet. So, in other areas it's really about adding color, or it's in other areas it's about adding kind of more or different types of services. So I think that when you think about what's going on within your business, there's lots of possibilities, and there's Inkjet is really behind this full range of possibilities. I wanted to just kind of talk about the adoption of inkjet, and anyone who's kind of been coming to any trade show, Graph Expo, Print, you've heard inkjet, and you've heard kind of the buzz about inkjet. A lot of this has really been going on for years and years, and yet, I don't know what you all would say in the past maybe 5 years is really the adoption of these solutions is really starting to take off. And Eric, I wondered if you could talk a bit about sort of why you think inkjet is taking off at this time.
Well, I've been around the inkjet business for a long time. Some of you that may know me know I spent 22 years at Kodak and was recently leading their sales and marketing worldwide around their inkjet business. And I'm happy to have moved over to Memjet a couple of months ago, particularly because we're bringing a new technology to market that I'm very excited about. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But inkjet, I think, is finally coming into its own. There's enough players out there that there's enough volume of business that the economy of scale is beginning to show a more aggressive cost posture for people to be able to adopt various inkjet technologies. I don't think that it was in its infancy, 4 years ago or 8 years ago necessarily. People have been using inkjet for quite some time, but it wasn't really mainstream, and it wasn't really as cost effective as it's becoming today. And if there was one thing that I would want you to take away about what differentiates Memjet in the marketplace, is that's a key focus of ours, making a very, very affordable system. Our current technology today, which is referred to as VersaPass, is one of the least expensive inkjet writing systems that can be purchased by an OEM manufacturer in the world. It operates at the highest native resolution of any inkjet system that's out there. It's very productive, high-speed, low-cost inkjet. And that theme we stay true to as we have moved forward into our DuraLink development, which is the new technology that we announced on the 30th of August and that we're showing over on our booth. That is also a very low-cost, high-speed, super high-quality, now pigment-based inkjet system. Again, the least expensive inkjet writing system that any OEM could consider in the marketplace for integration into their equipment. How that rolls down to you is obvious, that it allows those OEM partners to create a very affordable, high-speed inkjet solution that will be more and more acceptable to more users than in the past.
Thanks. That's actually that's helpful. And I think
You had a question?
Somebody earlier. What about quantities? I talked to somebody earlier today. They're talking millions a month impressions. What about for like an everyday printer that does mail like 10,000, 50, up to 50,000?
Yeah, and
multiple pieces.
And I think that just speaks to the scale of the equipment. Since we used SuperWeb as an example earlier, in their customer base, they have a number of people that are only printing a million or two impressions per month on an individual device. There are devices that are not necessarily as substantial as a web-fed press. There's sheet-fed equipment that's available on the marketplace with various partners of ours that prints at a much lower volume. So I think that the range of volume is getting smaller and smaller. I do agree with your point, and I think maybe that's a way to have characterized why the uptake in the industry is greater today, because years ago the cost of the equipment demanded that you have that kind of volume, or else you couldn't make the cost justification work. And that number is changing. It's going down, and it's going down quickly. And I think Memjet's very uniquely positioned to work with a lot of OEMs to bring products into the marketplace that will suit a much smaller scale of print requirement.
I think just to add to Eric's comments, we do have a number of installations that are in the 8 to 10 million pages per month volume. They're going multiple shifts. So the capabilities are there, and I think as you see digital become more and more affordable, you'll start seeing multiple shifts running at a lot of these different converters and printers.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you.
Good point.
Thanks very much, Jane.
Do you want to hold it?
Which I think leads to kind of the next question, is sort of where we are with inkjet. What are the trends really that when we talk about here are in terms of volume or in terms of what you want to accomplish with inkjet, some of the trends that really are enabling printers to succeed now that we have these solutions that have created that are more affordable, they're faster. And I'm wondering, Kevin, if you could talk a bit about some of the trends that you think are driving this, the adoption.
Sure. I think one of the things within this market, we've seen a lot and heard a lot of the same stories about print runs getting reduced, the need for customization, the need to eliminate waste, to be more efficient with production. I think that's where we've been most successful with our OEM partners in creating a really strong value proposition as we focus on the fastest print speeds based on the different configurations that we have. As we focus on the highest resolution in the industry, we're able to go into different market segments with essentially the lowest total cost of ownership and most of the time the lowest capital costs. So we're essentially creating new market segments that didn't exist before. One of the examples of this is with our partner Zonte. Zonte has a single pass 1600 DPI 12 inches per second corrugated printer in the $100,000 range. They're now not only selling to converters and to print shops, they're able to sell to manufacturers. They can now enable manufacturers to do just-in-time packaging to match their just-in-time manufacturing. So that's a whole new concept, a whole new business model that this technology is enabling down to an end user base that really didn't have that capability in the past. So we're starting to see a lot of market dynamics changing based on how our partners are utilizing our technology.
Yeah, it's true. I think there's so much when we talk about the infinite possibilities of inkjet. That's exactly what we're referring to. Is like there was a customer I talked to in Germany, a Memjet customer who is producing corrugated packaging, and it's just him. He's doing personalized packaging for suppliers in Germany, and he's making a huge business out of it. We've read trends that in industry publications are talking about how commercial printers are expanding into adding packaging or adding wide format. So I think that's where the creativity of inkjet comes into play, is that you're really able to think about things differently. So if you're a commercial printer, you might not have thought about offering customized packaging, but with an inkjet-powered, affordable inkjet-powered solution, that's definitely something that you're able to offer. We talked a bit about the future of which is today, of Memjet technology, which I think before Print 17 there was an announcement about this DuraLink technology, and I think this is a really interesting development both for Memjet but also kind of for the industry at large. And I'm wondering if you could just kind of expand on what DuraLink is and what you think it will have on the industry.
Sure, so I'll go ahead and get this started. So our existing technology is under the name of VersaPass, and VersaPass is installed in over 10,000 printers around the world through these 38 different OEMs. And will continue to be a very strong offering for our OEMs because it works very, very well for high, wide gamut, works very well on bond paper and on uncoated papers, and also coated inkjet papers. As we did that, we also had a request from many of our OEMs and customers to say, could you do for your second generation a couple things better? Could you give us much longer printhead life? Because the earlier question, we want to run longer and longer and go multiple shifts. We want longer printhead lives. Could you go to more durable ink for both water and light fastness? Could you give us more modularity? Maybe in packaging, I want to go very, very wide that maybe I can't go as wide today. I want to be able to customize more. Can you give me improvements in print quality and things? So those were the design objectives for our new offering called DuraLink that my peer Memjetters will talk about a little bit more.
Great. That's great. So, Eric, I'm kind of going to turn...
Question?
Oh, question. Back
Sure.
to you.
And my apologies, I actually brought Jamie here. He's a printer, and he's here to listen to all the panels and ask real questions from real printers. And he's got a bunch of them written down, so...
And we are looking at inkjet because we do one customer does 50,000 pieces a couple times a week up to 100,000. Right. So that's what I'm trying to find out quantities. Yeah. But you say coated papers, is it like a specialty coating treated papers, or is it any kind of coated paper?
No, what we're referring to, the ink set in the current technology called VersaPass is a dye-based ink set, and dye inks work typically better on untreated bond type papers without any inkjet preparation. So there's no salt-based treatment or any other thing on it. Because the colorant in dye is completely saturated throughout the fluid, it just sets up better on those kinds of papers. If you want to print on matte coated or other kinds of offset grade papers that would be harder for aqueous-based inkjet to be on, you have to buy inkjet treated paper, which typically is a salt treatment, or if it's a glossy paper, a cationic polymer or something like that, which adds to the expense. So that's got to go into the calculation as to how you would look at the financial TCOP impact of that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a question. Before you mentioned packaging, but you didn't specify what type of packaging. So can we just get a little more into the type of packaging that works with your technology? Thanks.
Sure. I'll go ahead and get that started. What you'll see today in our booth for VersaPass, you'll see it basically in the early entry into corrugated. And this would be for individuals that maybe want to do things on corrugated for advertising. It may be on pizza boxes. It may be on other corrugated cartons for advertising. You'll see it much more with the Duralink technology because many people in corrugated want to go very wide, and that's why in our Duralink technology, you'll hear Eric or Kevin talk about, we can go very wide with that technology. You'll see us also in folding carton. Folding carton set up very, very well, especially for the new Duralink technology. And then you'll see us also in a little bit into packages or shapes, whether they're bottles, cans, things like that. You'll see also with the new technology. So fairly good wide variety. Again, the new technology Duralink will do very well in the packaging market. So it's a good question.
And I think Jamie's question was kind of a nice beginning into Duralink as well, in terms of some of the specifics that make Duralink appropriate for the market that he's talking about. And so Eric, I wondered if you just wanted to provide a little bit more detail about the type of ink and the nozzle redundancy that goes into making Duralink such as the technology that it is.
Sure. So Duralink is not a brand new invention. Duralink is an evolution of technology based on our first generation heads, the VersaPass print heads. One of the things that we did well in our VersaPass technology that we're repeating in our Duralink technology is to build in redundancy at the nozzle level. Most of the competitive systems that you might look at that are built into other people's printing equipment around, say, for instance, piezoelectric heads, use one row of nozzles to print with. To build redundancy, which is typically done in these systems, into their systems, they have to put multiple arrays of heads in order to have more than one nozzle that's controlling or creating ink droplets at one location on the substrate. We build 5 times the nozzles into each print head so that there are 5 nozzles in every print head printing in every spot that you might need to print in. So if one of those nozzles were to fail, you might lose a little bit of density in an area that probably isn't going to be visually detectable, but the system can continue to operate without any visible defect in the print quality. That's very unique to Memjet, and it's something that is enabling us to hold that low-cost position that I mentioned earlier, because you don't need to buy as much of our equipment in order to build a successful print technology around it. Speaking of nozzles, there are 70,400 nozzles on every single print head, and they are in 5 rows so that you have that 5 times redundancy printing. It's 1,600 DPI, so you could do the reverse math on the 70,400 divided by, I can't even think of the numbers, but it's a lot of nozzles. The technology is easily configurable. Today, most of the VersaPass technology is limited to about 5 print heads wide. You'll see a wide format corrugated machine on our booth printing pizza boxes. That's 5 print heads wide. The new technology can go up to 12 print heads wide. Our print heads print at 8.77 inches. So if you do the math on that, that's about 2.5 meters is the maximum width of a product that any of our OEM partners could build. And instead of being limited to 4 colors, the Duralink system is able to accommodate up to 8. And there are a variety of extended color strategies that we're sorting through with our OEM partners today as to whether we're looking at gamut expansion for those or spot colors. The answer is we're looking at all of that, and we'll bring various additional color technology to market as our OEMs develop the need for it in the products that they're building out there. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you about? The long print head life. So one of the things, if you know inkjet technology, that is true for every thermally actuated inkjet system that's out there, is you have to have a heater inside of the ink chamber to basically heat up a particle or a piece of ink to the point that it boils. And when it boils, it creates a vapor pressure inside the chamber that ejects a droplet of ink. The point of failure in most thermal DoD systems is the heater itself. There's a process called kogation, which is the building up of ink and other materials on the heater to the point where the heater loses its ability to actually function, and that nozzle no longer can fire, and you have to replace the print head. What we have done in the new technology is come up with a process to put the heater on the chamber wall of the ink chamber rather than suspended in the middle. That allows us to put a lot of special coatings across the surface of that heater that prevent kogation for a longer period of time. You can't get away from it forever, but it's one of the key issue or the key reasons that our heads last so much longer. What we're going to say publicly from a marketing perspective is that we've improved the head life of Duralink print heads by a factor of 10. They're 10 times longer head life than what we have in VersaPass. Yeah. So what we would say, his question is, what is the range of life? On the VersaPass technology, our current technology, the range of life is between 5 and 7 liters of ink per head, per nozzle, or per head. In the new technology, it's more than 10 times that.
Thanks. Was there anything else you wanted
Yeah,
to?
I did. The final thing, and you can come over and see it at the booth, is we've changed our strategy a little bit in the way that we're going to go to market with Duralink as it compares to VersaPass. With VersaPass, we typically built an entire print engine. So what you could buy from us if you were an OEM partner is a printing engine that you then built into a paper transport or whatever other kind of system that you envisioned, but it was pretty uniform. The VersaPass print engine, whether it's on device A or device B, is very similar. And we heard loud and clear from our OEM community that they wanted something that was more modular than that, that was less pre-designed by us, so that they could take the very sophisticated pieces and parts of a system and build their own print engine, so that they could differentiate themselves better in the marketplace. So the way Duralink will be sold is in modules. So there's like a print head module that has all of the mechanics necessary to operate that print head. So you don't have to, as an OEM, build all of that behind the print head. You can buy that module from us, clip the print head into it, mount that print head in a device, and you're building a printer. There's a maintenance module, there's an aerosol kit, there's all sorts of pieces and parts that come in modular form that can be purchased by an OEM and assembled any way that they see fit. If you come on the booth, you'll see a number of the modules. You can pick them up, you can play with them, you can put them into an assembly, latch them into place. You'll see what we mean by modularity if you can stop by the booth, which is right behind us.
Yeah.
And if I can just add that, the key benefit of the features that Eric just talked about to the end user, it means that much less expensive, since Memjet's already done a lot of the systems integration for an OEM, so the OEM doesn't have that expense. So hopefully you'll see the capital costs as you acquire these presses from our OEMs. You'll see it'll be much more competitive, much more attractive than what alternative piezo technology is. That's the main benefit to the end users. And it's the simplicity from a service maintenance standpoint, very low service and maintenance, so you ought to have lower cost service contracts for OEMs.
Great. I'm just going to ask them. Oh. You mean, does anyone out here have any questions? Oh, yeah. Anybody else have any other questions you'd like to address? Excellent.
Everybody in this booth should have questions about Inkjet, just so you know.
Thank you. My question is kind of more basic and maybe actually kind of stupid question. But I haven't been able to attend any of the expo recently. So my image, understanding Inkjet is kind of, stuck with, I don't know, the Inkjet poster machine is very slow, And then I came to this expo and hearing this keyword of inkjet printing. So my question is, are you actually suggesting or offering to replace like offset printing? Or is this I still actually don't understand this inkjet printing you are going on about. Is it you are hoping to replace the offset printing with this new inkjet thing, or?
First, a simple answer, yes. We do see that the print world, in order to remain relevant, needs to find a path forward to be able to produce materials that are more specifically targeted at the audience that's intended to consume the material. And in order to do that, you've got to introduce some kind of digital capability into the print environment. So I think that inkjet is the technology that eventually, it's not today, it's not next year, it's probably not 20 years from now, but I don't think a lot of people in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years are going to invest a lot of money in purely offset technology. I think they're going to invest money in either digitizing their offset equipment by adding inkjet as a variable imprinting device onto that, or they're going to buy net new inkjet products for the printing community. So yes.
Sorry, can I ask? So at this stage, so you were saying the inkjet is more cheaper. You mean cheaper compared to the offset printing?
No.
No.
It's more expensive than offset printing for sure.
So we were just comparing to an inkjet, there basically are different writing systems. We were talking about piezoelectric, which is probably the highest form of print head capability. We have a different technology, it's a thermal technology. So we made those statements being lower cost, that's compared to piezo digital.
Okay.
For very long runs, analog, whether it's offset flexo, is always going to be very economical for very long runs. That's going to be there for a long time. But what you're seeing with digital inkjet, which is typically more expensive, you're seeing the cost come down. So you're starting to see digital inkjet get into longer and longer runs. Not as long as offset, but as opposed to being very fragmented, you're starting to see it getting more and more of printing. And that'll happen continually. If you look at growth patterns, typically offset flexo is probably decreasing 3 to 5% a year. Digital is increasing about 15 to 20% a year. So they'll both coexist. You're just seeing digital with a higher growth for the reasons we talked about.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Printers in the audience? Jamie, another question? Oh, Jamie, love him.
Hey Jamie, what company are you with? Dustin, can you write something down for me? What company are you with?
Allegra Princeton. We're in Cranberry, New Jersey.
Allegra Printing in
Princeton. It's called Allegra Princeton.
Cranberry, New Jersey.
Good. Superweb will be calling you.
Okay,
soon.
thanks. What about the ink? Any certain requirements for the ink? Do we use just Memjet ink? Is it?
Yeah, the ink is specially made for us. I think it's true of most inkjet systems in the world that you really need to tune the ink to work with the different technologies that it's going to be jetted through. It is a pigment-based ink. I should have mentioned that earlier in the Duralink comments. Compared to our current technology is a dye-based ink. So we're bringing a new ink set. We're bringing an expanded ink set because you can go 8 colors instead of just 4. And it's pigment-based, and it is specially made for our technology.
And you'll find the pricing of the ink will vary very much by the volumes. So what kind of volumes you're looking at, you'll see very strong variable pricing depending on the volumes that you're bringing to it.
We have a question back here from my friend from FedEx. Yay!
Hi guys, I've talked to multiple suppliers who use your inkjet heads and whatnot. I've got some questions about color management, and every time I ask those of the suppliers, they kind of shy away a little bit, and I ask them about different DFEs that they use on their devices, and they kind of shy away a little bit. So can you talk about some of the advancements you guys are making to help businesses better manage their color and brand consistency?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start, and maybe you guys can add to this.
Thank you so much.
So the questions about color management, profiling, half-toning, and other things. So on VersaPass, if you're looking at one of our presses, if through an OEM, we do have the data path where there's native dot level control. So both that OEM, or in this case FedEx, if you want to get into color management, half-toning, you have the full capability to do that. If you're in more of our desktop systems, which are less expensive, there we do an algorithm that compresses the data, and there you don't have dot level control. And then with Duralink, now our second generation technology, that's full native dot level control where you have full color management capability.
Yeah, and further to that, in the modular design of Duralink, we don't require that you buy the RIP, for instance, from us. So as an OEM, writing systems company, we provide as much as you want or as little as you want, and we let the vendor who's manufacturing the equipment make the decisions about how they'll do things like color management.
Anybody else? That's the last question. I will say, just part of this discussion, since we've, it's what has been interesting to me when we talk about inkjet is how, Len just mentioned it. It's like we have desktop printers that are producing colorful envelopes all the way up to commercial presses now with large volumes. And so I think when you think about your organizations, like what is it that's missing from your business, and what is it that's missing from the opportunities you're presenting to your customers? And I think there's lots of different ways of using inkjet to meet those needs. And I just want to conclude it by turning it over to Len to just say that in the Memjet booth, up in the sky, you can see we're right over there. And Len, if you could just talk a little bit about the things we'll be showcasing at the booth.
Sure, so you'll see at our booth right behind us, VersaPass demonstrations from a number of our OEMs, whether it's a commercial press, a hybrid solution that goes on to existing flexo or offset. You'll see corrugated carton printing onto corrugated carton. You'll see mailing examples and overprinting onto a web example. You'll also see our second generation through DuraLink. You'll see a monochrome implementation of that. You'll see the rig we have set up, that fully printing. You'll see the maintenance modules. You'll see the print head modules, along with a lot of print samples that you'll see, both for VersaPass and also for DuraLink. So I think you'll get a very good hands-on feel for the capability of VersaPass, DuraLink, and a lot of our OEMs and how they're using it. So come on by, we'd love to see you.
And anybody else have anything further to add from our panel? That's great. We also, at the booth, if you come by the booth, there's also, we have, Memjet's done a lot of work in terms of case studies and white papers that provide a lot of research into some of the vertical markets that we've talked about today. And I think they're great education tools for you. So that's a resource. And if you come by the booth, we can gather that information for you as well. I thank you all so much for coming and wish you a successful Print 17.
Actually,